We are not in a world where content is hard to create. If anything, it's cheaper than ever to create content. Everything will look good, sound good, and you don't even got to know what you're talking about to post content anymore. Go right into ChatGPT, Claude, wherever, and type in something and sound like like you've talked about it for years. Creating new content can be a nice cover for being productive and feeling valuable and busy, even if it's not what the company needs. So I think the funny thing about where content is at right now is we're at an inflection point where for a lot of marketers, there is still an assumption that content alone is king. Because we were brought up in a world where, for a lot of us, I'll say for the millennial marketers, we were brought up in a world where content itself was a commodity. It was hard to do. It was a lot of work to create content.
And expensive.
And we are not in that world anymore. We are not in a world where content is hard to create. If anything, it's cheaper than ever to create content. It's easier than ever to create content. You don't need a space like this. You can literally record on your phone and everything will look good, sound good. And you don't even got to know what you're talking about to post content anymore.
A lot of people don't.
You can go right into ChatGPT, Claude, wherever, and type in something and sound like like you've talked about it for years. So content itself is getting easier and easier. And yet I still think we have an overemphasis on it when we go to talk about content marketing or marketing in general. It's still content led first.
Right. Well, and everyone's been told you have to have video, you have to have content, you have to have social media. And so they do that, but that's not the first thing they should be told. Not just produce content. They need a strategy.
Yeah, well, yeah, and it's not that you have to have everything buttoned up and lined up perfectly, but especially for in-house marketers, I can't think of a single meeting that I've been in over, or probably it would be a very small handful, and I'm over a decade plus of doing content marketing, where we've started the meeting talking about a content initiative where we haven't talked about the content
Right.
at the start.
Mhm.
So not the message that we want to get out, not the idea, not the perception we want to change in the market. It's I have like several in the back of my head right now as we're talking, like, oh, we need a PDF.
Yeah, we need a video about this.
We need a workbook. We need a PDF. We need an ebook. We need a original research report on X, Y, and Z.
Mhm.
And it always starts with the thing that somebody's gonna have.
Yep.
And the problem with that is it dilutes the two other things that you actually need to make that content engine run.
Well, now I want to know what the other two things are.
So should I drip these things out, or should I let for the type A, should I just give it all and then we'll break each one?
I mean, I don't think of myself as type A, but I am, aren't I? Yeah, I really want the information. But I also have been in the same meetings, right, where it's like, make a video about this. Oh, it doesn't need to be a video. It can be a PDF. But no one asks the bigger question, do we need this video? What's it for? Who's the audience? What are they going to do after they've seen this? Like, that's not addressed. It's just, oh, we should make a video about. We should have a downloadable guide. Okay.
For what purpose?
Who's the audience?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, and at the core, I would venture to guess those are much harder answers to go get.
Yeah.
And a lot of times content, and I can even speak for myself, at times, content can be a nice cover. Creating new content can be a nice cover for being productive
Mm-hmm.
and feeling valuable and busy,
Mm-hmm.
even if it's not what the company needs. Because so often, marketers don't actually know their audience in a way that they know what they would need. And they don't know what their position is to go speak to that. So we default to, even if we don't want to, we default to features, we default to content about ourselves,
Yeah.
We default to, and this is my solopreneur friends, this is my entrepreneur friends, this is my in-house marketers who are working for companies. It's easy when we don't know what our audience cares about to talk about ourselves.
Yeah. Our mutual friend Giles started a new job in sales, and I remember him talking about the fact that they started him on the manufacturing floor so that he knew what the company actually does and what they produce and who it's for. And I thought that was just a brilliant thing because I don't know half the time when I'm in an in-house marketing position who the overall client for our sales team is or for our service team. Like, who are they talking to on a day-to-day basis? I don't get any of that. And so if I'm not in the field or if I'm not dealing with customers, I have a very siloed role of creating content that I'm told is probably good.
Mhm.
But from people who aren't in a strategy position, they're not in a marketing position. And I have no idea if it's going to hit for our particular audience.
Yeah. Yeah, and that is step one. That's step one, is to know. But I think when you go back to the content, that was a little bit of a dovetail over. But I think when you go back to the content and why we hop into meetings and ask about what's the next podcast we're gonna create, or where we should create a podcast is an interesting statement in and of itself.
Sure.
Um, and it is fine to start there. But again, I think what we'll see as we break down this framework is it's a great framework to be able to use as a set of guardrails when you're going to go create anything, whether it's a new initiative around a podcast, a webinar series, or even an individual thing where it's an individual podcast or an individual webinar that you're about to promote. And so, do you think we should just get into it?
Yeah, I was
feel
going to
like
say that sounds like.
I gotta
Did we already
go with
hit step
this.
one? Is that
No,
step?
so we touched on it. I think so. Step one. This framework is what I'm gonna call the win framework. And so when you're thinking about creating content in a new way for 2026 and beyond, you have to think about content in WIN. And so the W is your worldview.
Uh-huh.
You want to start with your worldview. And part of that worldview is knowing your audience and knowing what problems your audience struggles with, and then what is your unique take on that. Step two is input. That's the content. So that is what you are inputting into the whole system. This is anything from blogs, podcasts, YouTube videos, PDFs, all the stuff, the webinars, all the stuff we just talked about. That's the stuff that you're inputting into the system. So, and the funny thing is, what we were just talking about is oftentimes we want to jump to step two.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We're obsessed with inputs.
Starting there. Yeah. Starting with content, just being like, oh, let's make this. Let's make this.
Yeah, let's make a podcast of it. Let's go shoot a video
Without having a worldview.
Yeah, how do you even understand what type of content or what video you want to make if you don't understand how it's going to reflect back to your company?
Yeah.
And a lot of times I think I would venture to say the majority of times that content gets made, it's not reflective back. And so you're never building anything. There's nothing being built over time. It's just a smattering of little random bits and pieces that keep your marketing really at a shallow level.
Right.
Whereas the best companies, big, small, big team, small team, lean, doesn't really matter. The best companies are the ones that are building a brand and building on top of a foundation over time.
And okay, so you said worldview is the first thing, and I think it sounds so easy. Oh yeah, sure, my worldview goes into the content, but what you're saying is like have a worldview, because so many people just don't, and that's how you create shallow content. Is just being like, well, we don't want to offend, we don't want to take a side. We're just saying we can help with X, Y, and Z. But what they should be saying is, you suck at X, Y, and Z. Here's how we can help. Or most people are terrible at this. We can help. Whatever it is.
Yeah,
take a stance. Have
it
a
doesn't,
worldview.
and I would say it does. A worldview doesn't necessarily have to be this is where like I'm all about having a spiky point of view.
Sure.
I think it's good and okay. I think people can take and brands can take it too far. But a worldview isn't even necessarily a you suck at this or this problem is, you don't have to be that overt with it. I think that's why I like the idea of a worldview, even as a POV underneath that, where a worldview is more holistic. It's an insight into how the market is. It's what's your unique insight to the space.
Okay.
It doesn't even have to necessarily be a strong take. It can be, that can be part of it, but a worldview to me is much more holistic in terms of, take distribution first. Distribution first, the worldview around distribution first is that distribution matters the same, if not more than the content you are creating.
Oh yeah.
And so that shapes the entire space and how I view the market and how I view marketing and how I view content. And there's going to be a whole bunch of people that opt in, and there's going to be a whole bunch of people that opt out immediately, right? Like, what do you, and I've seen it for, 5-6 years now. Like, what are you talking about? Like, okay. You still need content. And yep, I agree. But that's not necessarily a spiky take.
Sure.
A spiky take could be, you should not create another piece of content for the next 6 months. Go back to your archives.
Yeah.
And start doing something with it before you even think about creating. So that, and even that isn't that spiky. It's just an opinion. It's an idea.
It's a challenge.
It's a challenge.
Yeah.
So anyway, we're on worldview. I want to make sure we get to the final, and then we'll climb in this. So I got worldview. WI is your inputs, and then N is your network. And I don't want you to think about network as like LinkedIn network. I want you to think of network in terms of the network of options after this thing gets published. So you've got, think of network television, right? Like this idea of distribution, of getting this thing out, getting it in front of your network. And as far as if you're a brand, what does that look like? Email, newsletter, LinkedIn, social, YouTube. What does that look like? And so that's where I think you can start to see if we overemphasize inputs, like we were talking about. If you're in the beginning and you're overemphasizing all your marketing, or like what percentage of your marketing efforts are hitting in each one of these categories. So if we're putting all of our efforts, or 70% of our efforts, or 80% of our efforts into inputs, and we're not figuring out what our worldviews are around those, what is the take around in those spaces, and we're not figuring out how is this even going to get to our network and start to spread the worldview, the whole thing starts to fall apart.
Yeah.
Because if you're just creating content without a worldview and with no network,
it's just going off into the ether.
I mean,
I've made a lot of that content.
What are we doing?
Yeah. Yeah. Where you produce something, and you're like, well, maybe someone will see it. You hope. You've crossed your fingers. You put it out in the world. Although you haven't actually put it out on the world, you've probably put it on your website. And maybe someone will go to that, although nobody goes to websites anymore. And so having no distribution network, having no worldview, gosh, that's some boring content.
Well, it's not. It's
the
the content could be really good.
That's a good point.
It could be perfectly fine content. We've created lots of I've created lots of great content, and not tied it to a worldview, and not put it into the network and spread it out, and it just doesn't do anything to help the business.
Yeah.
And I think in today's world where marketers are being taxed for more so than ever, and in a harder than ever world to attribute the work we're doing, we are oddly putting an emphasis in the areas that are not going to grow the business. So if I input more, if I put more in, more will come out. And that's not how the equation works.
Right. And too many people are trying to track. We'll track the input that we've created. We've put it out there. Track it. How's the data say it's doing? Well, it's not doing very good. Why not? What did you not do? What did you fail at? Do more. Create more. If you keep creating content every week, put a video out every week, put a PDF every month. Obviously, what is it? The Field of Dreams method. If you build it, they'll be there. They'll show up. Eventually, you just have to create more, which leads to burnout, leads to absolutely no perspective, leads to probably contradictory videos, because at a certain point you can only create so much. So
contradictory videos, the same. I think repetition is fine, but that's repetition in an oddly bad way.
yeah, in a vacuum almost.
Yeah, it honestly, it incentivizes all the wrong things for marketers to focus on. And I was just talking to one of my content marketing friends 2 weeks ago, and she was talking about how at her company, they are, and this is not unique. I think this is like most companies and most of my content friends out there. So I feel you. We're going to do, we've been having a really successful webinar series. And now we're going to take that same stuff and we're going to try it in a podcast. And we're going to keep doing the webinar series. And we're going to keep doing we need to write content. But if I write content, and this is a solo marketer here.
Yeah.
If I create that content, I have no time to be strategic about how to use that content.
Sure.
And so you start cutting corners, or you get burnt out. You can't do it all.
So I'm going to reiterate, you have someone who's successfully created a webinar series that's doing well, and now they've been told it's time for a podcast because this is going so well. Let's duplicate the efforts on a podcast. So, man, you're not kidding. I've heard this myself too, where it's like, take the webinar and just dump it into a podcast. I mean, there's some people who would just do that. They would just take the webinar that already exists, take the audio file, and now you've got a podcast, quote unquote. But it's not. It's still a webinar. Is an audience going to be there just because it worked in one format?
And it could, but again, if you're strategic about it, it could.
Right.
If you frame it up as we're going to do this hybrid thing, and these episodes are going to be actually this, but we're not going to do the standard webinar playbook. We're going to do it like I listen to a lot of podcasts that are just basically webinars, and vice versa. So it's just a label. It could be just a label,
right?
But in this case, and it's the same. I had another friend who it was oddly enough webinars again, really successful webinar series. This is so successful. Let's double up. Let's do more. We're going to go from 1 a month to 2 a month.
Sure.
And so you just see this ratcheting up, which I think that is when those two other ends become very important levers for what you need. And we're not even going to touch on that piece of it a ton, but if you have the guardrails of your worldview and the network on the back end, you only have so much distribution,
right,
that you can even use. So yeah, you are going to get more people into these live webinars. Maybe. And maybe they're worth doing, and maybe it's worth going 1 to 2. But I think a lot of times it's hard to even ask the question, do we have to?
Well, and even devil's advocate here, if we're saying that network is part of the structure, where did they go wrong in taking their webinar and turning it into a podcast? I want to assume it's on the front end of not having a worldview, and they didn't actually think through this process. They're just like, well, we'll just put it out there.
Well, and in that case, I'm almost positive it was not we're gonna take this and just throw it into a feed.
Oh.
It was we are going to create a new entity.
Oh, okay.
We are going to this worked out so well for us that we're going to take these same ideas and do them into a podcast, which I love. I think that is a great avenue to do. But do you have the ability to do that consistently over time?
Right.
Which I should probably put a C in here somewhere, but you can't have like a win C. But if you just do like parenthesis C somewhere in here, consistency matters.
Yeah.
In everything you're doing, because Oh, I mean, my goodness, how many initiatives?
Jeez.
How many initiatives have?
Well, that's back to the old marketing meeting of like, we need content. Okay. Well, nope. Never mind. That didn't work. Pivot. We
How
need
many?
new content.
I mean, you know this.
Yeah.
Most podcasts don't make it past 5 to 7 episodes.
No.
The amount of effort it take. I mean, we've talked about starting separate podcasts, doing podcasts for a company, etc. And it's like, unless you can get people to commit
Oh, yeah.
and have it work and be a long-term thing, I almost want to say don't bother.
Right. People are happy to do 1, 2, 3 conversations in front of a microphone, but after a while, they're like, man, I got to get back to my full-time job. Like, I got to actually do the work now. And that's fair, but why did we start this?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think that is really at the core where my head goes as far as how to set up and think about content in a new way is around that framework of win. And so when you are starting a new initiative or just maybe you're auditing your stack of what you've got, when you talk about maybe your average marketing department who's got a blog running and maybe they're dabbling in video and probably doing a webinar or a podcast or something extra, right? Like typically there's 3 or 4 things that a company has going. And I would just suggest you take a look at the last 5 to 10 things that were done, if those are things that you've already been creating, or as you look into the future, look at those and say, cool, this is a great input. I would love to do a podcast. I would love to do a webinar, but how does that help move our business forward as far as our worldview? Do we even have our worldview figured out? That is the first thing I work with people on with the distribution first framework. It sounds silly because it says distribution first, but it's actually like worldview first, like
Or
POV,
rebranding.
and positioning first. Because you cannot have good distribution if you don't have something worth saying.
Mm-hmm. You don't even know what your point of view is.
To go back to the beginning, if you don't, there is so much content out right now. I was just thinking about this today with a product that I use. So like a SaaS product, and they've got all these new features and I've gotten emails about them. And I logged in this morning and I was just looking, I was like, oh, I got to check that out. I got to check it. That's just one product.
Yeah.
And one thing, I mean, times every YouTube channel and every creator on LinkedIn and every creator on TikTok, like inundated with content and with options and with things. And so if you think your company can just post on social, send the email, hey, we did distribution, we sent an email, okay, or we are running a content engine, we create a new YouTube video every week,
right?
We've got an engine going. Not bad, like, but only 1/3.
Right. We don't really know what we're saying with it. But we're doing the thing. We're creating it over and over. We don't know who we are, but we're doing it.
Yeah, so yeah, go much harder at a company and much harder at a large company. As a worldview, much harder. But even if you're running your own thing, I would challenge you to go look at how you stand out compared to all the other options.
Yeah.
I mean, that's positioning 101, but why is somebody going to be, this is going to sound weird, but why is somebody going to be interested in you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Or why you over anyone else?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. What is going to make you, your company, your whoever that is, interested enough to interact with you and then come back and interact with you again and interact with you again?
Yeah.
That is that step. And then again, you could have that nailed down. Let's say you have that nailed down. I think a lot of companies do have that nailed down. I think there are a lot of companies with solid positioning.
Mm-hmm.
And there are a lot of companies with solid content. They are creating really good content, but they're missing the back end.
Right.
And they don't have that part of it figured out, where they don't have, and it doesn't have to be complicated. This is what we teach. It could just be a simple system. You almost want it to be so simple you don't have to think about it.
Right.
To when you go create something, I always describe it as you drop it in the bucket,
Mm-hmm.
and then the rest of the things just run. The flywheel starts going. So you're pouring the water in, and then that flywheel starts going and pumps it out with what you need. And then it's on you to figure out what those things are.
What's in that bucket? So, like, give me an example. This isn't what you're saying everyone should do, but like, what's in the bucket? So you've got a main piece of content that you're pouring in the bucket?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
it's
So
a
like, let's
blog post or something.
Yeah. So, I mean, if we go full on distribution first framework, you've got a core message and idea, your POV, that is what you're trying to get across. Like, nobody actually wants a piece of content.
Right.
They want their life to be better in some way.
Yep.
Entertained, informed, what are those things, right? But like, I don't actually give a crap about a PDF, a video, an email, or a book. What I care about is what that is going to do for me. So POV, worldview, all that structure at the front end, tying into the content you create. And this as well, and I've talked about this ad nauseum. There's probably 6 episodes on this feed if you want to go find it, about the 3C content framework, which is cornerstone, core, and cut. But let's just say core content in this instance. This is what you only need 1 or 2 of these things to create at any given time. So in this case, it might be a podcast. So I create this podcast. That's my core piece of content. It's every single one of these things is going to touch back on my POV. I bet you'd be there's probably some. I can think of one. So I don't want to be too, but you'd be hard pressed to find very many episodes on this feed that do not tie back to my worldview.
Right.
And that's very purposeful. So core piece of content ties back to worldview, dump it in, and then from there, this is where the distribution first part comes in, is you need to, before you even create that thing, understand what are the 1 to 2, I would stop at 2, channels that you are going to use. Because unless you have a big team, you're gonna run up against that bandwidth wall real quick. So even for me on my own, even for me when I was on my own inside a company, when I was the only content marketer inside the company, it was email and LinkedIn. We're gonna do email and LinkedIn, and then we dabbled and started YouTube as well. So then we added 3, which again I broke my own rule, but I made it up so I can do it. So 1 to 2 channels that you can be consistent on. Everything comes back to consistency. What can you consistently create? What can you consistently distribute? What are these channels that you can be when I talk to people, it's like, what do you enjoy doing? What do you enjoy? Like, maybe you hate writing emails. I could make a case for, cool, let's then find the who, not how. Let's go outsource this thing. And that's true across all the areas. But if it's just you, if you open up HubSpot to write a new email and you just like, your mind goes blank and you hate your life, like, pick a different channel.
Yeah.
There are people who love to pick up a phone and just record.
Yep.
There are people who love long form and want to write, in-depth, thoughtful Substacks. Love it. Go do it. And they can do it consistently because they like it. So you're talking about what goes in, core content goes in. What comes out is cut content, and that's all the distributed content. So from there, you understand your channels. I talk a lot about having output goals, not outcome goals. And so rather than worrying about, I'm going to have 10,000 YouTube views this year on the podcast, the output goal becomes, I'm going to have bi-weekly episodes or weekly episodes out. And by the end of the year, I'm going to have 52, 24, whatever it is, episodes. And then you can start, after that, start to get a baseline and see
Right.
what does that look. And that's across channels. So you send emails, right? It's not, I'm going to have 3,000 people on my list by the end of the year or by next year. It's, I'm going to send a weekly email every Saturday at 9 a.m.
Something you can control.
It's something you can control, and it's something you can stick to, and it's something that can keep you and your team accountable.
Yeah.
I am going to post on LinkedIn on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. We do this at Black Imaging.
Mm-hmm.
It's everything is reverse engineered on where we're going to distribute that content. So we know what buckets we have to fill. And this is true. I've worked with dozens of companies, and this is how we build it up. You know which buckets you need to fill on which channels. That's the distribution first. And then when you drop that in, a lot of the heavy lifting and thinking is done.
Yep.
Because you don't have to now, how many LinkedIn posts can I get out of this? Can I get 8? Do I need to get 8? I guess hey, I'm going to throw this over to my agency and get 10 clips, and I'm going to use 2 of them.
Right.
That doesn't matter because it's just cool. I got 3 back, and they're the best clips that I've got, and I'm going to slot them in here, here, and here. And that means I've got 2 more gaps in the next 2 weeks.
Yep.
Or I'm going to create this episode, and this is where it gets really fun and cool for me. Like even this episode, I can almost guarantee you there will be a newsletter article about the WIN framework. There will be a LinkedIn post about the WIN framework, and there could even potentially be individual pieces about each part.
Right. Yeah.
So I can have content about worldview and positioning and why that is important. I can have content about input and the type of content and how much content you need to be creating, and then have content about the distribution leg and all of that. And so that's just off of one podcast. And that's like me just sitting here thinking about it.
Right. And even wondering, it's just part of me wondering, like, how did the people who are listening to this or watching this now get here? Was it because they got your email and they were like, oh, I would watch that episode? Or if they were just following you on YouTube already, or whatever it was, something led them to, I want more information on that. Maybe they just started with the episode and then signed up for the newsletter. But that's kind of how it works. Like if you've got a network of content, people are going to find you one way or the other, whatever their preferred method for consuming content is. And that's why you have to have a network. You have to know your worldview. You have to know the content you're creating. You have to have that network in place. And now people can consume it however they want to.
And that is so important when it comes to distribution. And it really is the why. And it's not as if you want to go, like one of the last things I ever want to do, and I know this is where the world is heading, but I really don't want to like take my podcast and like click a button and have 10 things shoot out to the world. Like I really don't want to do that. Like I know that's possible. Because I think there's a dilution that happens. Again, it goes back to the worldview and the point. I think there's a dilution that happens when you do that. But the more channels and the more consistent that you can show up on those channels, consistency is going to outweigh. I really need to make this the win C. So everybody, this is what you got. Consistency really is the name of the game, because most people, your competitors, my competitors, your competition in the marketplace, most of them are going to quit. Most of them are going to, 90% of them are going to start creating something and then, get pulled in a different direction, whether that's from execs, whether that's from content initiatives, whether that's from product launches. I've been a part of them all, right? But if you can just stay consistent and get those things out there and allow your audience to consume the content however they want, you are going to be so far ahead of everyone else, because you can create an email and not everybody, believe it or not, is going to want to sign up for that email or read every email. And you could create a podcast, and not everybody's going to want to listen to. You could put a podcast on YouTube, and there will be people who will watch the podcast and never listen to the podcast. You can put your email newsletter on LinkedIn, and there will be people who read on LinkedIn and would never subscribe because it's too hard.
Mm-hmm.
There's too much friction. So it's, how do we show up in the areas? How do we make it to where our content that we create, all the effort that gets put into creating this stuff, how do we make sure, how do we serve our audience in a way where we make it easy on them?
Yeah. You said something earlier that made me think. You said go back and analyze your last 5 to 10 pieces of content, and it hit me. I wonder how many people have 5 to 10 pieces of content to review that they're proud of. That isn't something they're like, well, that was just something I had to create because they asked me to create it. But like, how many have, okay, these 5 to 10 were actually what I intended to make. I had the worldview, I had the network, I had everything around it. So, I mean, like, when you even say go review the last 5 to 10, that may be where people are starting at. Like, okay, I need to get 5 to 10 out there that I'm actually happy with. I felt that way on my own personal content before. It's like, well, I wouldn't analyze those because that was just kind of something I did on a whim. And there's no worldview to a whim. There's no strategy behind it. There's no consistency. Win, see the right way to go with this. Yeah.
Yeah, it makes marketing a lot more. I found it makes marketing a lot more fun. It makes it less checkboxy, less busy work, less performative, and it makes it why a lot of us got into marketing, which is connecting with an audience, serving people, helping them understand, helping them transform, like, when you have actual really good marketing and build a brand, it's transformative. Because I heard somebody talking about this. It's like the difference between it's the difference between a pair of headphones and like a really nice pair of Apple headphones or whatever it is, right? Like, or pick a product, you know? They both functionally are the exact same. Or a car, right? Like you like, car A is a $3,000 used 1997 Corolla, and car B is, a brand new Lexus, right? Like, what both literally get you from this point to this point. But why and how you feel about yourself and how, like, all of that is so transformational. And from a marketing perspective, like, that's the most fun marketing, is how can you allow people to step into a new worldview? And how can you allow people to feel like, oh, they get me? This is like, yes, I'm on, like, almost, it's weird. Like, we've sort of commoditized the community aspect of it, but it's the classic Seth Godin tribes. Like, we're tribal. People are tribal. Like, how do you, and we all want to be in. We want to be in the club, right? Even if it's, my club is different than your club, different than their club. I'm in my club. This is my crew. And so I think that is what really good content and really good marketing does, is it helps build that ecosystem in a way that a really good product doesn't, really good sales doesn't. It's a really fun part about marketing that I enjoy, and the others support. But I mean, we all know you could have the best product in the world, you could have the best offer in the world, have the best salespeople in the world, but if people don't know why they should want it and how it's going to make their lives better, they're not going to do anything with it.
Nope.
So yeah, I mean, that's really what I wanted to touch on this one. Anything from you as we wrap up? Any questions or anything that spin around in your brain?
Well, one thing you mentioned talking about the worldview, and solopreneurs versus in-house marketers are going to have a challenge with that, right? In-house marketers don't get to create the worldview. They have to figure out the company's worldview that may already exist. So there's a little more research to be done for them. Whereas solopreneurs, the challenge for them is going to be sticking to a worldview, because they could pull a new one out of thin air tomorrow and be like, no, you know what? Wait a second. I'm going to talk about this instead. So there's the consistency too, is pick your worldview, stick to it, find out your worldview, and lean into it. Just depends on what kind of marketing you're doing.
And I mean, there's so many aspects to this, but the more you pick something,
Mhm.
commit, going back to output goals, commit to talking about that thing for a good chunk of time. I don't know what you need to do internally, whether it's you, your team, whoever, but a question I love to ask when I was going in and working with companies in particular was, at the end of the year, what's the thing you want to be known for? You want your customers to say, oh, brand X means Y. This is what they help solve. This is what they help do. This is the problem they are attached to. And if you can't do that, or you can't agree on one thing, or as we all know, as you start to get into that, it all becomes a marketing, word vomit slop of just, we help agentic AI, blah, blah, blah. Like, when you get it, like, do you really, that's what you want to be known for? But starting there, giving yourself some focus, I would truly say like 6 months. Like, can you stay on topic first? And we've talked about it. There's so many things that go into a worldview and in a position. There's so many branches you can pull off of that. It sounds like, oh man, that's really narrowing into what we're going to talk about.
Mhm.
But it actually frees you up to talk about the thing consistently, gut check it with your audience. I mean, we could go down a whole rabbit trail on worldview, but your worldview should come from your audience and come from how you help support your audience and what is the unique perspective that you can do to help them. So to your point of like, talking to your audience matters, talking to people in the industry matters, talking to people, like, what are the actual problems that you solve? And then sticking with that. And then I think what you said is key, man. Being relentless on, we are sticking with this thing.
Right. Well, and you said 6 months. 6 months sounds like a lot. It's not a lot.
No.
When you're in January and suddenly you're like, oh my God, it's July already. How we get here? Like, how often are we reiterating that? Like, oh God, it's July already. How's it July? Like, 6 months will fly by, especially when you're creating content around a message. You know the message, you know the worldview you're creating this content around. So go. Just go and get it done. And suddenly you're like, oh my God, we've got those 5 to 10 to 20 pieces of content to reflect back on now, to look at our audience's behaviors, to look at our metrics and say, yeah, this worked, no, this didn't work, and start really targeting into what your audience is telling you they like and want.
And the fun, I mean, man, for me, as somebody who works a lot in between teams, I can see where there's a lot of room for companies, so product, marketing, engineering, for all sales, for all these groups to be able to come together and rally around something. So when you're developing a new feature and it's down the road, it's okay, how does this tie into our worldview for how we help our audience? Then all the marketing around that fits into all the marketing around that. You don't market the new feature.
Right.
It's not this new button that you can click and drop down. It's now you can do this because of that. And this ties into, like, the whole thing ties into why we're doing this. We're helping you do this better.
Yep.
And it can tie the entire, to your point of like 6 months to a year, it can tie the entire company around something worth rallying around.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which seems silly off of like a content program, but I think it really can.
Yeah. Keeps everyone on message.
Absolutely. All right. This was super fun. Andy, it was awesome having you here. And I think for anybody watching, listening, I go back, give it a try. Look at your last 5 to 10. To Andy's point, what are you proud of? What do you want to get more out of into the marketplace? Do you understand your POV and your worldview? If you want help doing that, let me know. I'm more than happy to work with you and help you get that out. I have tons of resources to be able to help you identify your unique POV in the marketplace and do it in literally less than 30 minutes, and then be able to tie that into the content you're creating, and that spirals out into the entire distribution first framework. But this is a blast. Hopefully the win framework will be a good one for you as well as you move forward. So thanks for being here.